Hi everyone, this is Federico with Cuddle. Uh, Welcome to today's live stream. Um, the subject today came from a question on Facebook, and I'm gonna cover. I think I'm gonna cover most of it. I have it here on the screen. Thank you, Selena, for asking this question. Um, Hi everyone. Oh, Stace is here. Cool. Um, so the question was, how do I make a template where there is a shape, and then there's a name. There is a name centered in the shape, but then the idea they want to do is to place, say, 12 names, and then hoping that the template creates 12 hearts with all the different names or hearts or any other shape in the middle of that. And so, how do we make this happen? I think this is cool. This kind of builds on things that we have been doing in the past. Specifically, I think live stream number 2, I'll put a link in the comments, had this idea of building a shape with a name that just sort of auto fits inside of it. And so perhaps I'm going to go a little bit faster on that, so we can get to the idea of like typing a bunch of names and then kind of automating those shapes. So let's get started. So I'm gonna go to my Cuddle dashboard here, and I'm gonna start a new project. So I'm gonna click the plus, which creates a new project, and I'm gonna give it a name just to stay organized. So names in shapes. And I'm going to be using components here somewhat liberally. So let's start just by creating the initial shape. And the question was how to use a heart. So I'm going to actually start with a heart. So I'm going to name my component too to stay organized. I'm going to call this one the shape. I can just double click here and then change the shape. And I'm going to look for the heart. So there's a basic shapes here that I can drag on the center. And I think it's nice to start with like the rough size of the shape that you want. So I'm gonna select that shape and I'm gonna say something like 3 inches, but of course you can change your own. Just to quickly show you, the heart shape has like some interesting parameters here that you can change. Kind of an aside, but I think it's fun to play with it. So you can change the pointiness. Which is cool. You can change the plumpness, you can make like a plump heart, and you can change the tilt to give the heart a little character. If you leave everything at 50%, that would be the default heart. Or you can always press these 3 dots and revert to the default. So I'm going to stick with the default, but you should know you can sort of make any heart that you want. And so I want to outline the stroke. And so I'm going to start with this modifier called outline stroke, which let me change the width. And I'm going to do something like 0.2 inches to give the heart a little bit of shape. And because this is going to be an outside cut, I'm just going to change it to red. Probably not super necessary, but I just kind of keep on adding things as I work. So the idea now is that I want a name in the middle, but I'm going to keep the shape separate. So I'm going to create another component by clicking this plus here, and I'm going to call that one the name cut. So the name cut is going to have that shape I just created, so I can just drag it here. And then I want to place some connected text in the middle. So I'm going to search for connected. So that gives me the text. So I'm going to place it right on the center. And I placed it like these because by default connected text has the origin here on the left. But I'm going to change the alignment to center. I think it looks about right. And so what I want to happen is that whatever I type here, any name, I want it to sort of grow to stay inside of that shape. And because the way it's better to make it grow to fit on the shape than to shrink it. So let me let me see what I mean by that. So I'm gonna type my name. And so ideally, I just want to change the size of the name, so it's just inside of the shape. So the way the modifier that I'm gonna use works is that it grows it in until it meets the edges. So ideally, we would have it like this. And so I'm gonna select both the shape and the name, and I'm gonna apply this modifier called fit within. And so fit within has some things we can change here, but like, let's see what the idea is. So let's make sure it's working. So now if I type any other name here, you can see it kind of growing until it meets the shape. But what I want to do here is I want to join the name. So I want it to grow even a little bit more, so it kind of overlaps the edges. So I'm going to change that fit within. It has a scale parameter. So the idea is that it will scale it a little bit past the edges, you know, like something like these, just like another 5%. So I get that little overlap. And in this case, I like to use, I think it's an extra fancy touch, but I like to use that well done score. So here, let's do that well done score. And so what this does, I think is super neat for laser cutting, is that it welds the two shapes, so it just joins them together. But in the lines that overlap, it changes the color, like that little blue line, to make it into a score. So rather than cutting all the way through with your laser cutter, you score it, and it just gives you this kind of like cool, readable look. So that's what the well done score is doing. So cool. Let's use the basic idea. I think I pretty much covered all of these in that second live stream I did, but if you want to see it at a slower pace. But now what I want to be able to do is just to have multiples of them. So what I'm going to do is when I click here on connected text, I can take these text as a parameter. So in order to do that, I can click on the three dots. And then there's an option that says extract as parameter. And it puts it here, and it gives me the option to give it a name. I'm going to call it the name. And so I'm going to check that it's working. So everything is working as intended. But you might be thinking, well, I could always do that by clicking here, this connected text, and changing it. Yes, you could, but like the thing that we just created is kind of nicer. So I'm gonna create another component here just to demonstrate, because now we sort of created our own shape. Oh yeah, so I used two beta modifiers at once and stacking them like that. So what we just created is the ability to now take that name code that I created and drag it onto the canvas, and I can drag multiples of those. And because I called it Lena now by default, it's all Lena. But every time I click on one of them, I get to change that parameter name. So all of them are different. But all of them are behaving as expected. So, well, the last one here. Hassan is watching, so I'm gonna use your name. So getting close, we created the sort of reusable shape. But now the idea that what we were kind of looking for, the thing we want to make work here is, if we have a main parameter, we can call that the names. Yeah, it's called the names. And so that parameter should be of the text type. So I'm going to change its type. I'm going to go to parameter type and make it text. So what I'm looking for is the ability to say type a name here and then press enter to create a new line, and then type another name, and then type another name, and then have all of these names just immediately correspond to different shapes to sort of generate those shapes. And so here's the trick. Well, it's not a trick. Here's how you do it. Let me introduce you to a couple of things, and we'll walk up to that idea. I'm going to move myself here a little bit so I can show you that I'm creating more components. So first idea, I'm going to create a new component, and I'm going to show you this utility, this kind of little known utility that it's seen in, you can see it in other templates, but you can also use it. So I'm going to look for it. It's called the auto layout. So it's here in the advanced section. It's called auto layout. You just drag it onto your canvas the same way you would drag any other shape. But let's look a little bit into it. So what it does, now that it lives here, I can see what the sort of parameters are. Make it here more present. So as you can see, I have a circle, a rectangle, a polygon, and a star. And they're kind of laid out here. And then I can change the spacing in between them. And so this is like a convenient way of creating a layout for your components for laser cutting by not just dragging them onto the canvas, but actually calling them by name. So if you look at these, kind of, it's full of brackets and stuff, but we can we can play around with that. So you can see that if I type, say, another thing, like another circle, and then I press play, you'll see that another circle appears. Just as an aside, the reason I need to press play here is that because this is a, for the nerds, because this is a JavaScript expression, then sometimes you're typing things and you can make, things that can break the program. So it's nice to be able to simply type something that you want. And then the program kind of waits for you to press play or to run it. So you see what happens. So we can call, circles, which is essentially the same as grabbing a circle from the canvas by name. But the cool thing is that we can also call other components that we created by name. So, for example, if I call one of the other components I created, so the thing I need to do is essentially type these, meaning the name of this component. If I type it right here, it should appear. And so if I start typing something like name cut, you can see that it autofills. And if I press play, you see that it added that name cut. The question is that if this play thing is a new behavior. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's been around for a couple of months. I think it was created in response to sometimes breaking things. But yeah, I'll ask when it was introduced. Thanks for the question. So I'm gonna go ahead and sort of erase all the things that are here, so we can just concentrate on the name cut. So name cut. There we go. So I could also have multiples of those. So if I add a comma and then another name cut, you'll see that it adds, a second and a third if I want to. So that's roughly how that auto layout works. It lets you it lets you just add call things by name, and then you can actually change the spacing. So this is like super convenient if you're laser cutting a bunch of stuff. So we are halfway there to where I want to go. So of course you can call other existing shapes that we created. So if I type that shape, for example, press run, it's essentially grabbing this shape component and putting it there, but it doesn't have the name. So I'm going to get a little bit more. So this is a little bit getting into that kind of coding territory, but I don't want to like intimidate you. I want to let you know that you don't have to learn all this stuff. I'm just showing it for those that are interested. But if you don't want to get kind of involved in all this kind of text-based stuff, I'm just gonna say copy and paste what you find to sort of make it work. So follow me just for a moment. So one thing we can do, which is it is that we created this parameter called name inside of the name cut component. And so I can actually change that if I wanted to. It's kind of a relatively convoluted, elaborate way. But if I type parentheses and then these curly brackets, I know that the name, that I called it the name parameter, and I can sort of assign something to that. So for example, if I assign a name, and press play, you'll see that now this one corresponds to that one, and I could sort of do the same thing for the others. I'm just gonna copy and paste and then say assign a different one. So that's kind of getting there, right? It's like I'm getting the idea that, you know, I'm calling the different components, I'm giving them the different parameter. But I want this to be a little bit more automated. Like, say you have like a list of 12 names. You don't want to like worry about all these little brackets and parentheses and all that stuff. So why don't we borrow from another? Why don't we borrow from people who have done this before? One little detail I want to add to these is that auto layout applies whatever, you know. In this case, it's all black, although I wanted this to be red and I wanted that blue to remain on the scores. So one thing I want to change to that auto layout thing is I want to get rid of this stroke, because this stroke is kind of overriding all the other strokes and adding it to it. So I just uncheck that that stroke because I wanted to preserve the ones from the other shape. So that's the way I want it to look. So let's borrow from someone else. I know there is another project that does exactly these. So let's go look at it. So I'm gonna go to Cuddle templates. And I can tell you that is the connected text name tag. So let's open that one. And so the functionality I'm looking for is these. Here you can create multiple of these keychains by listing multiple names separated by lines. So that works as intended. So I'm just going to borrow that functionality. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to open in the Cuddle editor, so I can see how this is organized. So you can see that this parameter here, this project here is the cut. This component is called the cut. And if I look carefully over here, it's using that thing I just introduced you to, the auto layout. So, and so we can see that there is some stuff typed in here. And I'm just gonna borrow it. I'm just gonna literally like copy and paste it. So I'm gonna select these, and then I'm gonna do Command C for copy. And I'm just gonna go ahead and type that onto my own auto layout. And so I'm gonna get rid of this thing I typed here. I'm just gonna paste it, Command V, and hopefully it works. So let's play. Okay, so good. I ran into a little problem. So it says, you know, when you run into trouble, there is a little red highlight here that says, hopefully it tells you what happened. So it says, could not find a reference named names. So yeah, sometimes with coding, if you don't use the right case for the letters, the computer will understand it as something that is completely different. So basically, the problem here is that this parameter, I should have named it without the uppercase. So I'm just going to change that. And let's see if it's working. So if I enter another name, there, so we have it as intended. So just a quick explanation. I suppose you could always like grab these and say type it, put it into like ChatGPT and ask it to explain it. But in short, what is happening here is this function is taking the names, meaning these names, and it is splitting them by the sorry, every time it encounters this thing, which is a new line, it will split it, and then it's putting all of those as split. I'm messing this up. So it's taking each name every time it encounters a new line, it will split it as a separate part of the array, and then it's passing it to these name lists. So it's creating a list based on the things we typed. And then it's putting all of those, each one of those, as a separate component. So this part that you can see here, this name code, parentheses, brackets, name, is basically the same thing I typed before. But now for each one of those names, it's passing a new one. Terrible explanation, but well, hopefully it gets you there. So importantly, if things don't work, the things to watch out for is that these names corresponds to these names, and that this name cut also corresponds to the name of this component that's name cut. So if I were to change the name of this one right here, if I call it name cuts, for example, then I'm expecting that to break. It didn't break because the Cuddle is kind of smart that way, and it just kind of changed its name. But if I were to change it here, it should break. Yeah. But it's neat. Cuddle kind of keeps track of some names, and then it will automatically change them. So cool. I think this is this was roughly the goal, to have a list of names and be able to type it here and have it generate your cut. And I could turn these into a sort of template. I mean, I think this one could probably save you a lot of time if you're doing multiples of something. So you could like create this sort of packaged view. And so I clicked on the README, which is the thing that allows me to write some notes. And then I could click here and add a component. And I want to add that component called the cut. And so now I can just type any names here. So I can type something like George. John. And then it's just, every time I type something, it's just going to generate a new shape. So cool. Hopefully, the question is, want to mention case-related functions. Tell me more about that question. I'm not entirely sure what case-related functions are. But another part of the initial question was this idea of being able to change the shape that you're using. So the way I set it up was kind of intentional in that I wanted to be able to change the original shape. So let's go back. Oh, I see. Thanks. The question is, can I Yeah. So the question is, yeah, there is a way in which you can force anything you type to be uppercase or to be lowercase, which could be useful because sometimes, yeah, you have a list of names and say you want them to be all uppercase. Let me, yeah, I think I can talk about that here in a moment. But let me finish this thought about the different shapes, which is, I'm going to go back to the editor. And so the idea here is that the original question was, how can I have something where I can type multiple names, and then have them create the shape. So we have the name just fit inside the specific shape. So we are there. But then the other idea was how do I change it to different shapes? So I'm running out of time. So the way I set it up right now is that if I change the shape component to any other thing, then that should kind of like trickle down to all the other things I did. So if I hide these heart, you can see it how it disappears from everything else by looking at these icons. And then I create any other arbitrary shape, like a circle. I'm just gonna stick to 3 inches again. And then I give it again the outline stroke. Oh, too big. Can make it red if I want to. So that should all trickle down to all the other things I did. So that, because this shape affects name cuts, then now I have a circle, and here I have multiple circles. And in that cut version, now I also have multiple circles. So this is a case in which I would want to change the spacing. Oh, because I had it negative. There we go. Yeah, it shouldn't overlap. It was my mistake because I had the spacing negative, so it was like overlapping. So this is kind of roughly the way we can make nicer ways in which we can switch the shapes. But for now, to make it work, I just have this shape component, and if I hide one or show the other, then it should change everything. The last question is how to make it all uppercase. I guess we could also borrow from another template. Let me see. I guess I could pull it off the top of my head. Is the function to uppercase? Let me see. This is the name cuts. Okay, cool. Let me try these. So I'm just gonna, I think I can write something like to uppercase, the name, and is that gonna work? No. All the JavaScript coders are gonna how to capitalize all letters in JavaScript. Yeah. Oh, I know what my mistake was. Maybe I need to turn this. Let me look at it. Let me look at it somewhere. I think this one is doing it. Yeah. Let's see how this template does it. Of course. So let me, it's something like this. I want to say name to uppercase. Dot notation. Okay. So anyway, this is how you would capitalize this one. So now instead of this name, I need to pass it. So that means connected text should be this one, capital name. Okay, cool. And that should work for all the others. Yeah, okay. Thanks for that question. It stretched my my memory. Yeah, dot notation. All right, cool. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful and it lets you, create some fancy templates or some useful and time-saving templates. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.